Okay, in this video we're going to continue talking about a little bit of texturing, but we're going to address the render settings, okay? Which again is going to be very important when it comes to processing what you're seeing here in your viewport, because some of the things that you're going to need, I guess, for your final render don't appear here automatically, and you're gonna have to kind of turn on through your render settings. All right. Um, so let's go click here. Okay. And again, I'm clicking on this symbol, and this is the render settings button right here. All right. So it's gonna open up this render settings. So let's just go through this, maybe the main parts that we're going to be needing at the beginning, and then we'll move on to another thing that you're going to need as far as texturing goes and how it kind of relates to the render settings. So at the beginning, the color management, this has to go. This sRGB thing has to do with how monitors kind of interpret what Maya processes as an image, but we're not going to be touching too much on this. Now, the file output, this is basically you're telling Maya how you want kind of to you're giving something a name. So let's say, for instance, I'm going to name this progress, and under the file format, I'm going to tell it what kind of image you want. JPEG has high compression rate, so you probably want to stick to something like PNG. We're not dealing with animation right now, so let's just stick to stills. All right. Now, if you look at this path address right here, it's pretty much telling you that any render that you process in Maya is going to be saving it in this location. So if I press on kind of render here, and I'm getting, again, Maya kind of processing this for me here, and I go to this exact location, which is within my folder structure. If I go to the images folder that it creates when I set it up my project, it's gonna show me again, and I'm right here under my images folder. If I go here into my temporary folder, it's going to show me this progress image that I just created. Alright. So again, that's one way that you would go about saving an image through your file output. Alright. Another way that you can go about this is by rendering it, and then you would do a file, save image, and then through here you would choose the form of compression you want, and it'll be saved right on your folder structure. It goes right to your images folder. So I'm just going to call this progress 01, and while the first one was saved in the temporary folder, the second one is going to be saved right outside. And I can go back to images, and that image is going to be right here. Okay, so that is the file output. Now, again, this has to do more with animation, and we'll be covering that in another tutorial later on. This is pretty much letting you know, what kind of camera are you going to be rendering, and right now we have it set as perspective, but you can also set up, one of your orthographic viewports, or if you have a camera in your viewport, which we don't have, then we'll just kind of stick to this. The image size is just basically how big the render is going to be. Alright, so right now it's using this 960 by 540, but if we go into presets, we have a bunch of different ones. And again, if I wanted to do an HD 720, it'll kind of change this automatically. Here you can change the resolution. Again, the standard it's 72. If you want to go any higher or something really high res, you probably want to go to something like 150 or 300. Okay, and that so again, this is the common tab, and you can come here and resize it. You can tell it where you want it to save, if you want to do it through here, or you can always do it through your render view and going from file and save as. Alright. Now, The other thing that's important here, it's this other tab here called the Maya software. Okay. Now, and again, you got to keep in mind that these are the default settings for the renderer you're using. So by default, Maya is going to be using the Maya software renderer, but sometimes you have other type of render engines that, and again, at this time I don't have any of them activated, so by default, starting out, you can always just stick to the Maya software. Okay. Now, here again, the anti-aliasing quality, you want to make sure that when you're working on a project, you change this to production quality. Alright, and the reason for that is because by default it's usually under some sort of preview quality, so it's not going to give you the highest quality when it comes to your rendering. So even when you're testing, you do want to have some sort of quality here to be able to see what you're doing. Beyond that, the only other thing that I like to talk about, it's the ray tracing quality. Alright, and the reason why this is important is because in last lesson we created a reflecting material for our windows, but again, if we do a render, there's really nothing reflecting on it. And again, this renders could take a little bit because I increased the size of my render window a lot. Alright, if you ever want to cancel out a render because it's taking too long or something like that, just press on the escape key and it should take you right out of it. Alright. But again, we're looking at my render here and there is no reflection. Right now this one, it's again 1020 by 720. I mean 1280 by 720, sorry. So I want to do something smaller because I'm just doing test right here. So I'm just going to stick to maybe a 640 by 480. That's always a good size. But like I was saying, there's no reflections happening here. And you could argue that that's because there's nothing kind of in front of it or something like that. So I can maybe create something out of maybe the sphere just to kind of see if it would reflect on my window here. And again, let's just kind of make this a little bit more interesting. Select the faces and just extrude them out. Alright. So again, I'm just trying to create something interesting for the window to reflect. And just going to give this a second. Again, nothing's happening. So the reason for this is that even though these blade materials have a default tendency to be able to create specularity and reflection, you kind of need to tell the Maya software that you want that reflection to happen. And by default, and that's called ray tracing, and by default that's kind of not turned on. So what you got to do, it's go into your Maya render settings. Alright, you got to go to the Maya software and you got to turn on ray tracing. Alright, and so now if I render this, I should be able to see some reflections, and maybe not just on my window but in any object that has some sort of blade material on it. So just to compare, I'm going to be using this button called Keep Image. Alright, so I'm going to click on it, and you're going to be able to see that it has the scroll bar right now. So what it does is that it actually keeps a sample, or not a sample, it keeps the image that I just rendered, and then I can render another preview of this, but it's not going to erase this one that I'm kind of showing right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on the render button here. And again, some of the things that we're seeing is that we're seeing shadows also, but we're starting to see reflection on our objects. Again, you can see it right here in the reflection. Alright. So again, just to kind of compare the two. And again, it probably this is probably what's happening just based on the default Maya lighting that you find within each scene. But as you can see, you can actually see reflections on our window here. So again, in order to be able to see reflections and you're going to be able to see ray trace shadows and things like that, you got to make sure you kind of check that on. Alright. Alright, so again, in this video we talked about the render settings tab and some of the most commonly used common settings, and then we moved on to the Maya software and checked on the ray tracing to be able to see reflections on our blend materials that we were expecting to see reflections from, but we didn't see because there was, we didn't tell Maya that we wanted to see those reflections. Alright, so this is going to conclude the tutorial on the render settings, or at least basic usage of it. Alright, and in later videos we're going to start talking about lighting and how we can start doing testing and different types of lights and things like that. Thank you for watching.